Hey there, welcome back to Tim Talks. Today we are talking keto cream of celery soup. Check it out. I think you're going to like this recipe. You know that if you're on a low-carb diet, you've really got to watch ingredients in lots of familiar classic dishes that you love. One of these are cream soups, which usually use refined flour, usually all-purpose flour in them as a thickener. I'm going to make a keto version today where I use xanthan gum instead, which has many fewer carbohydrates than wheat flour does. And we're just going to make a lovely classic soup that has very few carbs in it. Okay, so let's get started with our ingredients. Here I've got about 3 cups of celery that's cut into a fairly small dice, as you can see. Also 1 large yellow onion, also cut into small dice. And about a tablespoon and a half or so of chopped garlic. This is about 3 or 4 cloves, big old cloves of garlic that I chopped up. The other ingredients that you're going to need to make this soup are as follows. You're going to need 2 cups of heavy whipping cream, or heavy cream will do just fine. Again, if you're not on the keto diet and you're going to make a thickener using refined flour, go ahead and use milk. I'm also going to add 2 cups of my homemade vegetable stock right here. We're just going to keep that on hand. Of course, you could use chicken stock if you don't want to make a vegetarian soup. That's completely up to you, or any other stock that you like. We're also going to need 2 tablespoons of butter and 2 tablespoons of olive oil to get us started. And in fact, let's start sauteing these vegetables up so we can make our soup. Okay, I've got my soup pot heating up here over some medium-high heat. And we're going to start by adding 2 tablespoons of butter. This is unsalted butter. I like to be able to do the seasonings myself. And I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons or so of extra virgin olive oil. And we're going to let that heat up for a moment. And next we're going to add our vegetables. Whenever you're softening vegetables for a soup or something like this, you want to make sure that you get your fat good and hot before you put your vegetables in there. Okay, now our fat's just about at the right temperature. And you know what? If you're wondering why olive oil and butter, it's because butter has a lower burning point than olive oil does, and this will allow us to cook the vegetables at a higher temperature. Of course, you could use all butter, cook them at a lower temperature for longer. That's up to you. Or you could just use all olive oil. Here I'm going to start adding some onion. We've got that nice little sizzle going on there. And what we're going to do is we're going to start by adding the onion and the celery. We're going to leave the garlic out until later, because garlic, fresh garlic anyway, has a tendency to lose its flavor when it's cooked for too long. Or if it's cooked at too high a temperature, it will become burned and bitter, and we don't want that taste in our soup, of course. Get all that in there. Clean off my knife. And I'm going to give it a nice stir here. Make sure we get all the vegetables coated in our butter and olive oil. This is also a good time to season with salt and pepper, and that's our next step. I'm going to add a big old pinch. This is probably a half a teaspoon or so, maybe just a little bit more, some kosher salt. And I'm also going to add in some freshly ground black pepper. I really prefer pepper ground freshly right into things, as opposed to already ground up and a little bit stale. There we go. Give it another stir. And we're going to cook these at a medium-high heat and stir them once in a while, just until they're softened and the onions are translucent. That's going to take 5 to 8 minutes. We'll be back when we're ready to add our next ingredient. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes, and here you can see our vegetables are softening. The onion is now pretty much translucent. Everything is coated with oil and happily sauteing away. What we don't want here is we don't want to brown the onions. We don't want to caramelize anything here, and we don't want to add that color to this dish. Now we're about ready to add in the garlic. I'm going to push it right on in there. Give it a stir. Again, garlic is kind of delicate, and I don't want to leave it in there too long before I hit this with some of the liquids we're going to use. Actually, get our vegetable stock here. And I'm just going to go ahead and toss that right on in there. Herbs in the bottom and all. And I'm going to give that a nice stir. I'm not going to add the cream yet because, again, if you cook cream for too long and at too high a temperature, it's going to separate, and that's not what we want. It's not going to give us the creamy, lovely texture that we want for this soup. What I'm going to do here is give that a nice stir. And I'm going to turn the heat up. I want this to come to a boil. Then I'm going to turn it down to a simmer and let it cook for 20 minutes. And when we get done with that, I'll be back to show you the next step. As you can see, I've covered this with a lid to help it along here. That'll make it boil faster. And here you can see it's working. It's just now starting to come to a boil. I'm going to show you what I mean by bringing it to a boil and then turning it down to a simmer. I'm going to give that a stir. And when I say bring it to a boil, we want the whole thing to boil. I'm going to bring it to a rolling, this is called a rolling boil. I'm going to turn the heat up a little bit. We want the whole pot of soup to come to about the same temperature. And as you can see now, it's starting to bubble here in the middle. That means we're getting to 212 right here, as well as on the edges. Give that another stir. Okay, and it's at this point when we want to turn it down to a simmer. And I'm going to turn that down to pretty low heat. And I'm also going to put the lid back on it, because I want to keep the liquid in there. And we'll be back after it's simmered for about 20 minutes. It's now been 20 minutes, and as you can see, we've cooked down pretty well here. I'm going to turn the heat off, and we're going to let this soup cool a little bit before we puree it, and we'll be back when we're ready to do that. Now we're ready to puree our vegetables here. I'm going to actually cover the top with a cloth and hold it down. You never know when warm liquid will want to act up in a blender, so I never chance it really. I'm going to go ahead and give that a whoosh. This will really just take a second. I'm going to puree this into a nice smooth mixture, and this is what we're going to put back in the pot and then have a little cream soup. And here we are back at the stove. Now, ready to add our celery, onion, and garlic base here. Make sure we get all of it out of the blender. Isn't that gorgeous? Lovely pale green color. It smells fantastic, by the way. Anyway, to this, now I've got this on a medium heat. We just want to warm it through at this point. Now I'm going to add my 2 cups of heavy whipping cream. I'm just going to stir that in. Look at how lovely that is. All that beautiful cream in there. I'm going to stir it and we're going to warm it through here. And while I don't really want to bring this to a boil, I do want it to be fairly hot for when I add the xanthan gum, which is going to thicken this up just a little bit more. I'm going to go ahead and add that now. I'm just going to sprinkle that over it and stir it in. It always looks like it's going to make lumps first, but it doesn't. It dissolves. And it's going to give this soup the kind of body that we expect from cream soup. think it'd probably be a little easier to get those lumps out if I use a whisk. I'm going to do that. Okay. We can also put this back in the blender if it has a few lumps in it. Oh yeah, I can feel it now starting to seize up a little bit. Now it's got that nice body of a cream soup. Of course, our last step is to test for seasoning. And so, I have just a little. Very nice. I'm thinking a little more salt. Just a little more. I'm adding probably about a 1/4 teaspoon. I'm going to stir that in. And now this is heated through, and this is ready to plate up. All right, well, it's time to give this guy a taste here. Check this out. Isn't that a gorgeous bowl of soup? It's a beautiful pale green color. Look at that. It's got a nice body to it. I'm going to give her a taste. Oh yeah, this is very nice. This is actually much, much better than soup you can get in a can and that you make in just a few minutes. And this really, start to finish, only about 30 minutes or so. That is some good soup. Thank you for joining us today here on Tim Talks. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We love new subscribers here. Anyway, we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.